Hello, it's about 12 o'clock in Glasgow according to UK time, and this is the summary video for week 1, which I would like to catch up with now that I am luckily back to full health. And there are a couple of questions and lots of comments we have received, and to which I would like to respond in this very, very short video. First of all, I wanted to mention that I was incredibly happy about what I have read in the introduction of the participants. Usually I will try to tell you a couple of names here. I cannot do that because we are talking about thousands of people, and all the names should be really mentioned. So there was, on one hand, very nice coverage of all the 4 areas that I was bringing into this course. And on the other hand, what I enjoyed mostly is that there were so many people saying that, yes, these 4 areas actually work together. This is my favorite, or I don't even have a favorite because all the 4 are very important. But yes, this was on my mind when I was designing this course. So that's why I have chosen these 4 areas, because I also see that these are fully interlinked and that they work together in shaping our world of business and organizations. There were several comments about the first topic, about the social level of the organization. What I wanted to say is that this whole first week was about building some sort of initial picture about the world of business and organizations, which we are going to refine over the further weeks. Therefore, we started it from the social and narrowed it down to within the organizational level. Now, on this social level, the main question was from Iona Wilson, whether there are only 3 forces: the governments, the corporations, and the civil organizations who matter in the social world. Well, I think that we need to distinguish between 2 different things. One is the entities and the other is the forces. So these are the 3 entities which we used to describe the social world today. And there are forces according to which these players act. Now, the forces actually correspond to those 4 areas that we are covering in weeks 4 to 5. So knowledge, technology, globalization, and ethics. But it can be done in a slightly different setup as well. It depends how you want to model it. But in terms of entities, these are the 3 entities that I can see at the moment. If we are talking about anything that is larger unit than an individual. So we could add individuals and families for a fuller picture, but in terms of the forces, this seems to be sufficient to describe a model. The second topic that came up was questions about the more direct, more concrete business environment. Toyoshi Yato, for example, was asking about the turbulence and uncertainty in today's business environment and how we can make use of this. And we had Jim Booth, who was asking, actually I have to read this for you because it is a very nice wording, how do business reconcile the crystal ball gazing needed to plan for the future world with black swan reality? Now, this is probably the essence of this lecture. If we are not looking into the planning for what we cannot expect, because we can only plan for what we can expect, then we can say that it is a kind of crystal ball glazing. But the real question behind is whether it is possible to prepare for something that we don't know what it will be. Now, I would like to use the metaphor of skiing to address this topic. So, you know, the skiers, when they are doing the competition called Grand Slalom, which means that they are going down the hill like this and they need to go over around certain gates, but they also need to be as quickly as possible down at the end of the race. This is resembling what we have in the current business environment. So we have all sorts of obstacles for which we don't know where they are when we are starting the competition, and we need to be very quick in responding to these challenges in the business environment. So can we learn something from the skiers? Let's assume that the skier wants to plan the optimal strategy of competing. What would that mean? It would mean that they sit down at the beginning of the race, they measure the temperature of the snow, the temperature of the air, they analyze the texture of the snow, and based on that, they choose the appropriate wax to prepare their skis. Then they put on their skis and they go all the way to the first gate, because at the first gate you need to stop because there is something unexpected. So you need to revise your plan. You measure the temperature again, you calculate the optimal angle to go around the first gate, and then you devise the strategy how to do that. And you go around in ideal angle, and it is perfectly done, and you arrive all the way to the second gate, and so on, so on. The problem is that by the time you get down at the bottom of the race, you will be missing the whole competition. The others will be in a different location, in a different competition already. So is it better if you just respond very quickly? What you can do, you can just go straight through and you will certainly be the fastest. The problem is that you missed all the gates. What that means that you are not responding to the challenges of the environment. You are the fastest, still you are a loser because you did not do what was expected. You did not cope with the challenges. So what will the winner do? How they do it? They are training very hard. They are getting used to responding very, very quickly to the unexpected gates, to the unexpected locations. They try to practice this angle and that angle and how they can be fast and so on. And when the time comes, they try to get all the gates or most of the gates right, and at the same time being fast. So being in training, being in shape, in rethinking your business, in responding to the environment, that's really all you can do in preparation for this kind of competition. Let's see what else we have here. So there were lots of comments and questions about the organizational structure. However, what I want to encourage you is to also read each other's comments, because almost every question was answered within the comments, apart from two topics which I will address here. But there were really, really good examples and really nice responses, so I would really like to encourage you to get on with that a bit. So in these structures, the two topics that were most questions remaining unanswered about is about the Shamrock organizational structure. For example, Sugu Altomson says that I'm still unclear on the Shamrock organization and the characteristics. Could we clarify? But what I like very much is a comment. Sounds a bit negative comment, but wait for it, because it is actually a very good comment from Eva Trainer, who says the Shamrock seems a further perversion on the commodification of the labor in a capitalist society. It does not recognize the need for communities to look after one another on grounds of human decency that would be worthy of civilized society, and instead creates hyper competition, as people need to strive to be a part of professional core, because that's the only position that offers some degree of certainty. I can't see how this goes together with the notion of community. I was very surprised with the comment. And the reason is that it never occurred to me that it can be interpreted that way. But if I read it in an open-minded way, it is a perfectly legitimate interpretation. And then I started to think about why it never occurred to me that this could be interpreted that way. And the reason is simply that I know Charles Handy. And Charles Handy is the person who came up with the idea of the Shamrock organization. And he's a very, very gentle, very nice person who obviously does not want to push people into poverty and hyper competition and so on. So the idea of developing the Shamrock organization was that, yes, there will be some core members who are there all the time, who are fully employed. And as you say, that is really the only position that gives you some sort of job certainty. However, the job certainty is not necessarily something that we are aiming for all the time. So the idea was there that we can have these other groups of people who work on different part-time, periodic, and so on basis. But the idea is not that, that you just hire and fire people all the time, or that there is no certainty in that way. I know many people who would be happy to work for example, half of the money, half of the time. The problem is that this is very difficult to achieve in the current organizational structures. So I cannot get like 70% of my salary if I work 70% of what I am working at the moment, or 70% of what I am supposed to work for a full week. The problem is if you go down to 70% or something like 30%, it means that you need to work almost the same amount of time. So this kind of further flexibility was the idea displayed in the Shamrock organization. So for example, that people could work for half of the time and spend the other half of the time, for example, working for charities, having fun, playing music, or whatever else they are interested in doing. So it is not, the purpose of it is not the loss of job security and putting companies into some stronger position. It is making it possible for people to do in a way that they feel better about it. So I know lots of people who would, if they can earn what they need for living and they don't have incredibly high demands in that aspect, if they could earn that with 2 days work a week, they would not work more than 2 days. They would do other very interesting, sometimes socially responsible, sometimes artistic things that would be also to benefit to the society or fostering communityship and so on. So that was the original idea of the Shamrock organization, and that's why I think it is a very important possible future structure. What is also very important is that there were many people questioning how realistic it is to have this kind of organizational structure. The real answer is I don't know. Okay, so these are possibilities. It would be nice to have that kind of organizational structure, not replacing the current ones, but in addition to that. So what we see as a direction in terms of organizational structure is a greater variety. And that's why the second mentioned question is very important. For example, mentioned by Charlotte Brady about the adhocracy or Madeha Hei. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing the names exactly right, but this is, I only have them in written form. So there are all sorts of questions about adhocracy. Now, the essence of the adhocracy is in its name. It is ad hoc. It is a temporary, ephemeral structure. It comes very close to what we sometimes have explained as the project structure, project-oriented organization. What that means? There is a task, there is a project, there is something that needs to be done. So what you do, you assemble a temporary structure, a temporary group of people who will act in a certain way, who will work in a certain setup until that task, that project lasts. What happens afterwards, who knows? This structure disappears, new tasks, new projects are coming up, and you put together new structures for that. So the ad hoc means that it is temporary, that it is just for now, and it will be different at another time. So that's the temporariness of the structure is emphasized by the notion of adhocracy. And of course, what I mentioned, that various netocratic structures. So the netocracy would be the web version of any kind of cracies, which means any kind of organizational structures. And these networks tend to work in very different ways, and we don't really know where this is going. So the Shamrock organization is one type of network-oriented structure, one type of netocracy, which we have seen, or which Charles Handy envisaged. But we don't really know what is coming. What we do know is that we are going towards more temporary and more network-oriented organizational structures, and we can just get ready to recognize them when we see them. The next topic was about management and leadership, and we don't have too many questions, we had more comments here. And the comments were very interesting and very nice, but do not require any feedback from me. I think that it is obvious that you understand the similarities and differences of management and leadership, and I have received beautiful examples which I hope you will be okay with if I use in my teaching in the future when I talk about the differences and the similarities, and also in terms of how the interpretation of what management and leadership are can be different, which leads to obviously further differences. Now, for which we did receive a couple of questions. For example, Sinlim Lei asks about the management and leadership functions executed by different people. And that relates to Haley Johnson's question about how this can go towards communityship. And this communityship version of the leadership. Now, the idea of communityship is coming in from all sorts of various areas. Mintzberg positions it as a kind of opposite of that kind of prima donna leadership that he does not like very much. Charles Handy develops it from the idea of the employee-organization relationship, and it is about the importance of the members of a village or a community not being owners of the village, but also not being owned by the village. They are members. There is some sort of symbiotic relationship, how they make that organization, that community. And so there are different conceptualizations. The original one, I think, coming from Peter Drucker. Now, that would all mean that reestablishing of some sort of emotional relationship with the organization, which means that we need to find a way to be enthusiastic about the organization. So it is on the employee side, obviously. So that the members of the organization actually have some emotional relationship, because there seem to have been some sort of alienation between the members of the organizations and the organizations. And that also leads to the final question, which was from Tolasi, and it was, the question was, do these really exist? So do we in practice really have organizations that work as communities? I don't think that these are very widespread. I don't think that they are any kind of dominant model at the moment, but I have seen some. Mostly these were reasonably small family type organizations, but I have also seen an enormous size organization called Google. You probably know the company. So when I was there working with them in Palo Alto, the Palo Alto headquarters, that's kind of buzzing place where people are together, and they are obviously a community. It is almost secondary for a moment when you are there that it is Google, although you will see there the enthusiasm of people working there who call themselves Googlers to emphasize that they are members of this community. So to conclude, I just wanted to mention something that started to happen in week 1, and it is continuing to happen over week 2. And I left it for the last because I'm so pleased about that. This is exactly what I wanted to achieve with this course, and that's that we are receiving a very large number of comments that, now in light of this lecture or that piece or this article, I can understand better something that happened to me, or what I have seen in my organization, or what happened to someone else I know. So people are reinterpreting and making more sense of their personal histories within the business context in which they work, which means that we are achieving our purpose, that they are gaining better understanding of modern business and organization. So thank you very much. This is all what we could have squeezed into these 20 minutes. And see you again in a week's time at the end of week 3 when we are providing the next summary video. Thank you and goodbye.